PAX, Journey Home, Chapter 39. As soon as he'd carried her under the hemlock boughs, Pax checked his kit thoroughly. He could find no injury. Still, his heart beat fast with dread. "You left this safe spot," he scolded. "I was thirsty." The kit did not lower her body in submission, but she wagged her little brush, asking for pardon for her disobedience. Pax licked her cheeks to show she was forgiven. "You said your boy was not dangerous, but he threatened." No, there was no threat. Pax was certain of that, but he was also puzzled. Peter had hurled something that had smashed on a rock right next to his daughter. Why? Often his boy used to throw a white leather orb at another boy, who caught it in a thick covering he pulled onto one hand. Over and over, Peter threw. The throws were hard, like the one at the river, but both boys laughed and were at ease when they played this game. Those times were different from today, though. Pax remained puzzled. My boy meant no harm. He felt sadness and concern. The kit wanted to know how he could tell this with the wind blowing away from the boy. This Pax could explain. He called to us in his grief-yearning tone. His grief-yearning tone? Pax reflected on the many times he had heard this tone from his boy. He had heard it most often when Peter sat alone in his nest room. It had been strong the final days he had seen his boy last year, when Peter had packed his possessions into a box. Then he'd wailed as the car peeled away, when he'd sent Pax away the day with the coyotes. But Pax shared a different memory with his kit, one from the earliest days with Peter. "I was in my pen, hungry. My boy had not fed me that night. There had been angry shouting between him and his father in the afternoon, and he had run away and had not come home by sunset. I grew anxious, pacing my pen. He came back so late the moon was high. He brought my food. He sat beside me as I ate, soothing me in his grief-yearning voice. My boy lay down in the straw bedding with me, and even in sleep the grief-yearning scent hung on him all night. It is both sorrow and want." Still, the kit did not understand. It is like the grief call of foxes. Pax had shared this cry with the skulk of foxes when Gray died, and with Bristle when Runt had gotten hurt. But he understood that his kit had never heard it. You will know that call, but humans alone know the grief-yearning. Before he could explain further, they were surprised by a commotion of crows landing in the branches above them. Pax slipped out to listen. The huge group of humans, the one from the reservoir, were back, he learned. They were moving down the river again. How far? How fast? Pax wanted to know. But the crows flew on, rising so suddenly the bows clicked with their release. Pax stuck back inside. "We must leave. Can you walk?" The kit got up. She followed Pax out, setting off at a strut, but after a few steps she lost her balance. She looked down at her back leg, as if it offended that it would not serve her. She shook herself and sneezed out some leaf litter, then lifted her chin and set out again, and once more she crumpled. Pax came to her side. He examined her more closely. No stingers blistered her skin, and as when Bristle had nosed out a hive of bees. She had no weeping wound, as not in pain, like Bristle when his tail had been burned. Her belly was not rigid, as Runt's had been after eating green potatoes at the deserted farms. She was not wounded so badly she fell into a sleep from which she could not awaken, as Runt had been when he'd lost his leg. Bristle and Runt had gotten better each day from those injuries. His kit was weakening the way he himself had been weakening in the days before, remembering growing more ill each day. He would have died if the boy Peter hadn't taken him in. He looked down at his kit. He knew, finally, what to do. He lifted her by the scruff of the neck and felt how light she was, how loose her skin was. "Home?" the kit asked. "I will see you safe," was Pax's promise.